November 2024, America, a nation perpetually teetering between greatness and self-destruction, is on the precipice. The upcoming election isn't just about choosing a president, it's about choosing the course of history. The nation is a tinderbox, and the match is perilously close. Political divisions have deepened into chasms. Trust in institutions has eroded. Economic anxieties fester. The stage is set for a perfect storm, and the biggest fear, that the storm doesn't subside after Election Day. What if the election results are delayed, disputed, or simply rejected by a large portion of the population? The potential consequences are as chilling as they are real. This isn't hyperbole. This is a clear-eyed assessment of the fragility of the American experiment. The time for complacency is long gone. It's time to confront the uncomfortable possibility of post-election chaos. It's time to talk about what happens when the center cannot hold. In a nation already riven by partisan rancor, a contested election result could be the spark that ignites a wildfire of unrest. Imagine this. Election night arrives and the results are inconclusive. Accusations of voter fraud fly. Legal challenges mount. Days, maybe weeks, drag on with no clear winner. The uncertainty would be unbearable, the tension palpable. People already on edge would reach their breaking point. Protests fueled by anger and distrust would erupt across the country. What starts as a cry for fairness could quickly descend into chaos. History offers plenty of cautionary tales. Disputed elections have a nasty habit of turning violent. Look no further than the recent past for examples of how quickly things can spiral out of control. The very foundation of American democracy, the peaceful transfer of power, could be at stake. The possibility, once unthinkable, is now a terrifyingly real scenario that we can no longer afford to ignore. Imagine this. What begins as a simmering rage in urban centers, fueled by years of social and economic inequality, spills over into the suburbs and beyond. The unrest, once geographically contained, becomes a national epidemic. Small towns, often seen as immune to the turmoil of big city life, find themselves caught in the crosshairs. The idyllic image of American life, the white picket fences and manicured lawns, is shattered by the harsh realities of a nation divided. Looting and violence, once confined to news reports from faraway cities, become terrifyingly local. The supermarket you frequent, the gas station you rely on, the pharmacy you depend on for medication, all become potential targets. This isn't fear-mongering. This is a stark illustration of how interconnected our lives are and how quickly chaos can spread in our hyper-connected world. No one, regardless of zip code or political affiliation, is immune. As civil unrest spirals, a word long relegated to history textbooks and dystopian novels starts to creep into the national conversation: martial law. It's the ultimate act of government control, the suspension of ordinary law in favor of military authority. Imagine, a dusk-to-dawn curfew blankets your city. Soldiers patrol the streets, their faces grim, their fingers hovering near their triggers. The freedoms you take for granted, free speech, assembly, even movement, are gone, replaced by a chilling silence. Martial law is often touted as a last resort, a necessary evil to restore order in times of extreme crisis. But it's a slippery slope. Once implemented, it can be incredibly difficult to roll back. The very notion of the military policing American streets is anathema to the ideals upon which this country was founded. But in the maelstrom of post-election chaos, it could become a terrifying reality. Lights out, communication down, navigating the blackout. The chaos isn't confined to the streets. In our hyper-connected world, a breakdown of civil order can quickly translate into a technological nightmare. Imagine the power flickers, then dies completely. Your phone, now useless, becomes a brick in your hand. The internet, once a source of information and connection, goes dark. You're plunged into darkness, both literally and figuratively. The systems you rely on, electricity, communication, even water supply, are vulnerable to disruption, either as collateral damage from the unrest or as deliberate targets of sabotage. Supply chains, already strained, break down completely. Supermarket shelves, once overflowing with abundance, are bare. Gasoline becomes a precious commodity. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a full-blown crisis. In the absence of basic necessities, panic sets in. Desperation breeds desperation. The social contract, already frayed, begins to unravel thread by thread. Beyond tear gas, the escalation of force. As the situation deteriorates, the tools of control become increasingly brutal. Tear gas, once a symbol of excessive force, becomes almost quaint in the face of more potent chemical agents. Rubber bullets give way to live ammunition. The line between law enforcement and military occupation blurs. Orders are given and followed that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. The body count, once a grim statistic, becomes a horrifying reality as names and faces are attached to the numbers. The spiral of violence is difficult to stop once it gains momentum. Each act of aggression begets retaliation. The cycle of violence, once unleashed, becomes a self-perpetuating monster consuming everything in its path. Militias and mercenaries, filling the void of authority. As law enforcement agencies become overwhelmed, a dangerous new element enters the fray: private militias and security contractors. Armed groups driven by ideology, opportunism, or a toxic mix of both attempt to fill the power vacuum. These groups, often poorly trained and operating with little oversight, become a law unto themselves. They answer to no one, beholden to no code of conduct. Justice, in their hands, is swift, brutal, and often dispensed without due process. The presence of these armed groups further erodes the already fragile social fabric. Rumors of atrocities abound. Trust, a rare commodity in the best of times, evaporates completely. The rule of law, once a bedrock of society, is replaced by the rule of the gun. The world is watching. International implications of American unrest. The chaos within America's borders doesn't stay there. The world is watching. A mixture of horror, fascination, and, yes, a certain degree of schadenfreude. America's enemies, sensing an opportunity to exploit weakness, may ratchet up cyber attacks, sow discord through disinformation campaigns, or even provide material support to factions within the unrest. Allies, once steadfast in their support, may waver, their faith in American stability shaken. The global order, already fragile, could be dealt a fatal blow as the world's remaining superpower implodes. The ramifications of America's internal strife are felt far beyond its borders. The beacon of democracy, once a shining example for the world, becomes a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the fragility of freedom and the ever-present threat of chaos. The psychological battlefield: fear, panic, and misinformation. The chaos isn't just physical, it's psychological. The constant fear, the uncertainty, the barrage of misinformation, it takes a toll. Social media, once a tool for connection, becomes a weapon of mass manipulation, amplifying fear and distrust. Rumors spread like wildfire, often more potent and damaging than the truth. Conspiracy theories flourish in the fertile ground of fear and uncertainty. People, desperate for answers in a world turned upside down, cling to any narrative that offers a semblance of order, regardless of its veracity. The mental health crisis, already a silent epidemic, explodes under the weight of prolonged crisis. Anxiety, depression, PTSD, these become the invisible scars of a nation teetering on the brink. Preparing for the storm: building personal and community resilience. This all sounds terrifying, right? And it should. But here's the thing. Acknowledging the potential for chaos isn't about giving in to fear. It's about taking action. It's about building resilience, both personally and as communities. So what can you do? First, get informed. Understand the potential risks. Second, have a plan. Think about how you'd communicate with loved ones, where you'd go, and how you'd access basic necessities if the systems you rely on fail. Consider learning basic first aid and self-defense skills. Stock up on essential supplies like food, water, and medication. But most importantly, invest in your community. Connect with your neighbors. Build bridges of understanding and support. Because here's the truth. In the face of chaos, our greatest strength lies in our collective resilience. It's about coming together, rejecting the forces that seek to divide us, and reaffirming our shared humanity. It's about remembering that even in the darkest of times, hope still flickers. And it's that flicker of hope that we must nurture, protect, and together, fan into a roaring flame.